Marketing means advertising. And something that truly aches my soul is watching students struggle with marketing or advertising their projects. I think the reason it hurts so much is because I myself have been through this, and it is one of the most painful things that can happen to an entrepreneur. Perhaps the saddest part is that 95% of students and entrepreneurs will encounter this problem. In my own experience coaching 20 plus different students, only 2 of them were able to overcome this challenge on their own. Imagine that you've come up with this brilliant idea, a 2-day online poetry boot camp for elementary schoolers during the first week of summer. You spend dozens of hours recruiting poets in your area to come teach and share their ideas. You design PowerPoint slides, you manage all of these logistics, only to find yourself with just 4 signups the day before the event. And then you finally launch your event, and guess what? There's just 1 person. 3 people who said they'd come didn't even show up. This is disaster scenario number 1. And believe me when I say there is a very strong likelihood that this could happen. In fact, this exact scenario happened to me 3 years ago when I started my first company. And if it sounds scary and heartbreaking, well, that's because it is. Disaster scenario number 2 is when you spend hours trying to avoid disaster scenario number 1, but you still get the same result. You design posters, you build a website, you email people, but for some reason, you just can't seem to get signups. You've poured your heart and soul into marketing, and you spend dozens of hours trying to convince people just to show up. So why do we still just have 4 signups? Now, before I reveal the solution and answer, I want you guys to take a moment to jot down, scribble every single marketing idea, tool, strategy you can think of. If you were responsible for marketing this online poetry bootcamp, how would you do it? How would you guarantee that 10 students show up the actual day of the event? Have something written down, or at least a few ideas floating about? Good, let's talk about approach. There are a few marketing methods that you guys definitely should be prioritizing: texting, calling, and video chat. And there are a few that you should pretty much never ever use. These are social media, posters, and a website. Why are some of these approaches better than others? Well, it all boils down to 2 key concepts: conversion rates and friction. Let's begin with how not to market and talk about social media. For some reason, whenever I ask students how they would market an event, one of the first options that they consider is social media. Naturally, I ask, why? And also, which social media platform are you talking about? Let's take Instagram, for example. Did you know that paid ads on Instagram have an approximately 1.5% conversion rate? That's really, really low. That means you'd have to show your ad to 1,000 people just to get 15 signups. But there is a caveat. That's just for paid targeted ads, which means if you're just posting a sign up link on your personal Instagram story, chances are the conversion rate is even lower, like 0.5% or maybe 0.3%. Sadly, I have personally witnessed cases where students post about their project or initiative on social media and quite literally get 0 signups. Now, with that being said, there are situations where social media can work to your advantage. If you already have the graphics for your event and it just takes 20 minutes to assemble 3 or 4 posts, by all means, go for it. But don't spend hours toiling away on social media if you discover that the conversion rate is really low. Just like Jeff mentioned in the earlier module, your time and energy are your 2 most precious resources right now. Generally speaking, I would really avoid social media marketing like the plague, but I have seen a few successful guerrilla marketing tactics where a student was able to convince, let's say, 10 or 20 of their friends at their school to make a post at the same time. This can definitely help generate hype and awareness for your campaign. And as much as I hate to admit it, there are successful ways of leveraging social media. In my personal experience though, it just takes a lot of creativity, effort, a new kind of skill set, and it's just not as reliable as some of the other approaches we're gonna dive into. Posters. Just like social media, posters have a notoriously low conversion rate, usually less than 1%. Even worse, they have something called friction. This is when there are a bunch of additional steps in the sign-up process, which just makes it very difficult for a potential customer to try your product or service. Put yourself in the shoes of your target audience. You see an interesting poster at school. Then you have to pull out your phone. Then you have to scan a QR code, or even worse, right? Type out the link on your mobile browser. Then you have to fill out a sign-up form, or worst of all, download an app. That is just way too complicated and way too much work. I mean, think about the last time you saw a poster in your own life and decided it was so captivating that you had to try whatever it was that poster was advertising. I'm guessing never. Website. The reason the website is a common trap is because of how much time it takes just to get one set up. Many students underestimate this task, even with the help of a site builder like WordPress or Squarespace. It took me more than 10 hours to write everything down, find images, and format it properly. And perhaps most dangerous of all, a great website is no guarantee for a great conversion rate. I mean, most of the time, people signing up, they don't really care if you have a website or not. A Google form will suffice. We'll get more into that later. Last but not least, let's talk about emails, which can be a double-edged sword. In short, the effectiveness of your email depends on your target audience. For example, emails might not be the best tool if you're trying to recruit elementary schoolers to your event, since many of them probably don't have one. But if you're trying to target their parents, then yes, email could most definitely work. Email is even more effective for high schoolers or college students, since many of those guys check their email multiple times a day. One technique I personally love to use when it comes to email is leverage existing networks. Try to see if you can get your school newsletter or a local organization to include a blurb about your event, as well as a sign-up link. Their audience is likely to be much larger than your own, so even if the conversion rate is rather low, you're still likely to generate some signups. Second of all, my friends, you must be persistent. On average, it takes 7 cold emails for someone to respond if you just message them out of the blue. Be kind and give people a way out. Consider constructing a message that says, "Hey, I'm working on a project that I think you might be interested in. But if not, just let me know and I'll remove you from our email marketing. No hard feelings." I know it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but by being honest and upfront, we're actually more likely to win over customers with our approach and get them to engage. Which brings us to our third and most important tip. Use warm leads, not cold ones. In case you forgot, a cold email is sent to someone you've never contacted before, whereas a warm lead is sent to someone you already know, a friend of a friend, an acquaintance. Guys, you would be shocked at how differently people respond to emails from complete strangers versus emails that start with, "Hi Jeff, I got your email from a mutual friend of ours, Kevin, and he said that you might be interested in learning more about a project I'm working on." I mean, just one sentence like that can boost your conversion rate from 10% to 50%. Just to sum things up, let's take a look at the amount of time it takes to set up each of these marketing channels versus their potential conversion rates. Social media. 6 to 8 hours to take photos, design graphics, create a content calendar, and decide when to post, all for a conversion rate of less than 1%. Posters. 2 to 4 hours to take photos, design graphics, print out the posters, and put them all over your community, all for a conversion rate of less than 0.5%. Website. 15 to 20 hours to write about your initiative in a compelling, concise way, format it in an aesthetically pleasing manner, all for a conversion rate of still less than 1%. Email marketing. 4 to 6 hours to write and draft some emails, generate a list of potential contacts, and send. Now, the conversion rate for emails can really vary between 1 to 30%, depending on the effectiveness of your message, your target audience, the number of follow-up emails you send, and whether or not you're leveraging warm versus cold leads. At the end of the day, though, the reason why most of these channels suck is because of their cost-benefit ratio. It simply takes way too much time, which is your most precious resource, to recruit potential customers. Oh man, if only there was a more time-efficient, cost-efficient way to get customers.